This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Another very important show. I never say great show because, you see, this is not entertainment. This is the real world. We get down to business at Freedom Watch and also with Larry Klayman. Yours truly does in his personal capacity. Because what we see on TV these days, whatever cable network, whether it's Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, it's basically reality TV. It's to boost ratings. It's to get people ginned up. It's to bring in advertising dollars. Not so true here, not true at all here at Radio America because we tell the truth. We're getting the word out. We do this because it comes from our heart, not because we're trying to monetize things. But I'm going to have on the show this week a very important guest, Chief Justice Roy Moore. You know him as the great former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Alabama, someone who wanted to have the Ten Commandments displayed in the courthouse. I might add it is displayed at the Supreme Court, but he was persecuted for that. He was smeared. And then he stood up on principle with regard to gay marriage, not because he's homophobic, but because he believes that marriage is between a man and a woman. I want him to tell a story because he was also smeared over that. And there's a false statement out there, false defamatory type material claiming that he was removed as Chief Justice because of that. I want him to tell the story. And, of course, he's also running for the U.S. Senate. He's going up against the establishments of both political parties. Don't want a principled person there in the Senate. You know, I ran for the Senate back in 2003 and 2004, and my motto was, I don't want to be a member of the Senate club. I want to take a club to the Senate. I was going to take the concept at that time of Judicial Watch into the Senate, actually construct a law firm. For Florida, I'd have about 100 employees and workers and be like a Trojan horse, sue other senators and then individuals inside of government to try to bring about the rule of law and an understanding that this country is based upon constitutional principles. But I've represented a number of people. I'm representing Judge Roy Moore now in a case against Sacha Baron Cohen in my private capacity. He was defamed by Sacha Baron Cohen. We can get into that when he's on the show. But I also represent Sheriff Joe Arpaio. We have a very important hearing next week before Judge Royce Lamberth, one of the really great judges in this country, where I sued Chris Cuomo, Jeff Zucker, the CEO of CNN itself, Huffington Post, and the Rolling Stone for defaming Sheriff Arpaio. That's at 10:30 a.m. in Judge Lamberth's courtroom at 333 Constitution Avenue, Northwest Washington, D.C. You're invited to attend if you'd like to see what's going on there. These are motions to dismiss that are in front of the judge, and I know in front of Judge Lamberth we'll get a fair hearing. I also represent Cliven Bundy. Read about him at clivenbundydefensefund.org and contribute to his cause, is that we're now involved in an appeal, if you can believe this, by people inside of the Trump Justice Department of the dismissal of Cliven Bundy's indictment. Now, it's being handled by the U.S. Attorney in Nevada, not by Maine Justice. They don't want to touch it. But why would they be appealing the effective acquittal? It wasn't actually an acquittal. It was a dismissal of the supersedious indictment with prejudice of Cliven Bundy after all he's gone through and after all the prosecutorial misconduct, lying, and deceit that we uncovered in that case that caused even a Harry Reid recommended an Obama-appointed judge, Gloria Navarro, to dismiss the case, to save her own skin, not because of the goodness of her heart. She didn't want to be associated with it anymore because she'd be going down in her career. And, of course, she probably hopes that she'll get a higher appointment someday if a Democrat wins re-election, election in the White House in 2020 or thereafter. And now we've got Dr. Jerome Corsi. We've got Laura Loomer. We've got others who have been smeared and defamed, people who are true patriots, who do their job. And that's why Freedom Watch has a leftist media strike force. We just don't talk about these things. We actually act. We bring lawsuits. We just don't get mostly documents like my former group, Judicial Watch, which I founded in 1994. But because Tom Fitton's not a lawyer, he changed the mission to transparency in government, no longer prosecuting government corruption and abuse. This is the kind of thing why you need a Freedom Watch. You need our Justice League because we're proactive. And then also my private capacity as a lawyer for the Claimant Law Group, I bring private cases for individuals who need someone like me who will stand up to the powerful, the rich, the elite, who will not get rolled, will not be intimidated, and that's who I am. And this is very, very important. And that's why I want you to hear what Chief Justice Roy Moore has to say, because he's a lot like me. He stands up to injustice. He's been smeared unfairly by individuals who've tried to take him down, and so have many of my other clients for which I have lawsuits. But you know what? You have to stand up to it these days. And the people who, frankly, should be subject to strong criticism, people like Representatives ILHAN OMAR and Representative Rashida Tlaib in particular, these two Muslim congresswomen, it's not because they're Muslim. It's because they're vehement anti-Semites. They identify with Hitler. They identify with the Third Reich. Just this week, OMAR referred to the boycott against Israel to do business with Israel, and she introduced legislation, unbelievably so. I'd hate to read it. There are probably lots of misspellings in it at a minimum. She equates trying to boycott Israel with trying to boycott Nazi Germany. She's equating Jews to Nazi Germany. She's equating Jews in Israel to apartheid in South Africa. Now, she wants to travel to Israel in the near future with her buddy, Rashida Tlaib, who said that the Holocaust gives her a calming feeling. The death of 6 million Jews, gypsies, and others gives her a calming feeling. These are the people in Congress today. And Prime Minister Netanyahu, who talks a good game, but rarely exercises a great deal of courage, I might add. It's mostly a good game, or we wouldn't have Iran where it is today, threatening Israel, threatening the United States. Israel should have taken it out a long time ago while the cancer was still minor. Now it's metastasized. Now Iran is a major power. But let us hope that Netanyahu gets some cojones and keeps Omar and Tlaib out of Israel, doesn't let them come, because they're only coming to meet with the PLO or with Hamas to work up some kind of further coalition against Israel to destroy Israel. But these people, you see, they use the race card. So they even caused the president to back off. Because you know what? In the case of Omar, she should be sent back to Somalia or Kenya. She's from Somalia. She went to Kenya. Kenya is not a place where you need political asylum, by the way. You know, it's not a completely mad and crazy place where people are killed just because of their political beliefs. She didn't have a legitimacy to be in the United States for asylum to begin with. And then she committed immigration fraud, married her brother, and then now there's reports that she used the name of another Omar family for all of her immigration, which is also fraud. Now, this is the difference, you see, between listening to Sean Hannity and listening to others and actually doing something. I mean, I've gotten to the point now where I'd rather watch the Golf Channel. I mean, this week, the British Open is on. I find that more newsworthy and more interesting than watching the reality TV on Fox News. And, of course, we know that my clients, these very brave patriots, have been blackballed from Fox News because they have strong views, because Fox News is now moving left. The president has severely criticized Fox News. We need alternative conservative networks to fill the gap. We need Sinclair. We need others to come down the line to be able to fulfill this need. Newsmax doesn't do it either. Newsmax plays both sides of the street. I can't even get my articles published on Newsmax anymore. They get censored every time I send over there. And that's why I'm publishing my articles with WorldNet Daily and Restore America and other places. Because we need to stand up for what we believe in and what is right. And that's what Judge Moore is going to be talking about when he comes on later in this show. But let's also talk about the hypocrisy of Fox News. Yesterday I'm watching Tucker Carlson, just briefly, before I turned on golf TV to watch the British Open. I used to be a scratch golfer when I was a young guy, and I play a little bit now when I have time. But the hypocrisy of this, they had a guest on where he claimed credit for uncovering all of the dirty tricks and immigration fraud and everything else that Laura Loomer was the one who was the leading voice on. Why isn't she getting credit? Just a few weeks ago when we brought the lawsuit for her against Facebook, who branded her as dangerous, that was defamatory, and did other things, I asked Fox News, and she did too, to put her on. Wouldn't put her on. They don't give these people credit. You have to be part of the establishment. You have to be someone who won't scare advertisers. You have to be someone who will jingle the change for Fox News and other places. That's why they have Fitton on. He gets them documents. He's careful about what he says. He's not really out there. He's not a lawyer. He can't take the strong actions that I take it when I ran Judicial Watch. Freedom Watch is today what Judicial Watch used to be. Yes, we're smaller. I left Judicial Watch with a lot of money. You have to have money to make money. But the reality here is that we're up and coming at Freedom Watch. We are continuing to fight. We're in the trenches for the little guy. We're in the trenches for the underprivileged. We're in the trenches, and we're like a civil rights group. We're the conservative version of the ACLU. ACLU has turned communist. We're not communist. We believe in the Founding Fathers and their vision. We believe in the Republic. We believe in God. ACLU does not believe in God by and large. And this is something that you need to remember. So go to freedomwatchusa.org. Contribute to our cause. freedomwatchusa.org. Join our Justice League. We're actually doing something. I'm not playing cards with documents. We're in the real world. We're bringing hard-hitting cases, citizens' grand juries. We represent you, the American people. We're your Justice Department. I'm going to be right back with Chief Justice Roy Moore. Listen carefully, because this person is a true patriot, and he has a lot of courage.
Fearless.
He's claiming he's crazy, he's racist, he's out to kill the Democrats.
Dangerous.
You don't care, he uses the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special Prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
I'm back with my friend, my client, someone who I've always admired a great deal. I've gotten to know him very well in the last few years. A true American patriot, someone who stands up for what he believes is right, someone who stands up for Judeo-Christian ethics, God, the rule of law, the Constitution. I introduce you to Chief Justice Roy Moore. Chief Justice, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Larry. Nice to be with you.
And I want to say, I know you're running for the U.S. Senate. In my personal capacity, I'm helping you with that in whatever way I can, and I endorse you personally. There have been very few people I've endorsed in my career, and we're going to talk about that later on in the show. But I want to give people an introduction, a real introduction, because like anybody who's courageous, anybody who believes in God, anyone who stands up for principles in this country gets smeared these days. And I want people to really understand who Chief Justice Roy Moore is. So give us a little historical background of what you've done, how you became a judge in Etowah County, where you live, how you became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Tell us a little bit about what happened with regard to the Ten Commandments and with regard to the misinformation concerning your stand on gay marriage.
Well, that's a lot in a short time, Larry, but basically I'm from Alabama. I'm married. I've got 4 children, 5 grandchildren. I've been married for nearly 34 years, and my first marriage and my last. I'm very happy, and the work runs the Foundation for Moral Law, which I began. I'm retired from the Chief Justice now and running for the United States Senate. I began my career in the military after finishing the United States Military Academy at West Point and serving in Europe and in Southeast Asia and Vietnam, where I was a company commander. After I left that, I went into law, and the first job was deputy district attorney. Then I advanced to, I went to private practice for a good number of years. And then I was appointed circuit judge and elected circuit judge. and then I was elected Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. And I think that's where most people remember my name, is I was involved with the display of the Ten Commandments, which they said you couldn't do because of the First Amendment. Of course, the First Amendment doesn't prohibit any such displays, and that's just fiction. And basically what it was about wasn't about the Ten Commandments, it was about who gave the Ten Commandments, and that's God. And when our country distanced itself from the very foundation of morality, then we suffer the consequences. So I was intent on seeing that issue was resolved, and the Supreme Court eventually didn't take my case, and I was removed from by Judicial Inquiry Commission, which naturally I didn't have an appeal to this. The Supreme Court of the United States didn't accept my appeal. Thereafter, I was reelected after 9 years later, and running the foundation in that meantime. And I was elected and went into Chief Justice when the same-sex marriage issue came before the court. Of course, I disagreed with the Obergefell after it was issued, but before it was issued, our court took a very strong stand on that and issued injunctions. So basically, I just upheld the law that said traditional marriage. And today, Alabama is one of the only state that has ruled before and after Obergefell upholding injunctions against same-sex marriage. Of course, nobody tries it in court anymore. So now I'm running for the United States Senate. But I guess it's very difficult to tell people how it feels to stand up for principle in our country today. Because when you do stand up for principle, you suffer the consequences, and the consequences that I suffered was removal from office on 2 occasions. So it's very difficult to find people that will do what they say when elected, but I believe that's what you're supposed to do, and that's what I did.
Well, we've got 40 seconds left in this segment, Your Honor, and I call you Your Honor because you deserve to be called Your Honor. But when we come back, I want to talk about why you want to be a U.S. Senator, what you hope to accomplish, and the forces who are working against you to try to keep you from becoming a U.S. Senator. And that can be very surprising to some of our listeners. Not surprising to me, because I understand what goes on in Washington, D.C., and the deceit, frankly, of the establishments of both political parties. So we're going to be back. In the meantime, give some reflection. Go to freedomwatchusa.org. See what we're doing with our Justice League. We're trying to bring about the same kind of justice as Chief Justice Roy Moore has been trying to do all of these years in his foundation. We'll be right back.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I'm back with the Chief Justice Roy Moore. Justice, why is it that you want to be a U.S. Senator? I mean, after all you've gone through, how you've been defamed, unfairly beaten up, in the wars here in Washington, D.C. and throughout the country from both left and hypocritical right. Tell us why you want to be a senator.
Well, I think there's important issues facing our country that we need to address, and they're not being addressed by politicians in office. All politicians in office are doing is playing a game. They tell the people one thing, they get up, they vote, they conceal their votes in different ways, but they don't stand up for the truth. And I think it's time for somebody to stand up for the truth. I'm basically running for the people because I don't think the people have a voice in our country today, whether it's for state government as in Alabama, where they elected the Republican legislature that passed a tremendous gas tax and now going to toll roads. And that's just simply not what Republicans are supposed to do. We're supposed to be for smaller government, lower taxes, less regulation, and instead you get the same thing as the Democrats do. And I think that people don't have a voice. I think they need a voice, and I hope to be that voice. But it'll be God's will, whatever happens. They've cut off funding. They've stymied me in so many ways. I get ugly reports in different newspapers from Washington, D.C., and I'm involved in a case where I sued people for defamation, and it's just not going anywhere in court because it's been delayed, and it's cost a lot of money. So if people want to find out about my campaign, they can go to roymoore.org and find out.
Well, yeah, and there's an article today about fundraising and things like that. You know, one of the things which we see, because we're following what's going on, is the fact that you have the Republican establishment trying to destroy you, notwithstanding the vicious, rabid left. You've got people like Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. You've got people like Karl Rove. Tell us a little bit about that, what went on in the last campaign and what is likely going on today, because McConnell's already come out and said that, you know, he's going to do everything he can to try to defeat you. And he's one of the most politicized, two-faced, in my opinion, untrustworthy politicians in the Republican establishment, notwithstanding the entire establishment, Democrat included, in Washington, D.C.
Well, the Washington establishment, Democrat and Republican, it's all about power. It's not about principle at all. It's about power. And they purport principle, but they basically go to the power, trying to keep their job. And I think, you know, they don't want me up there because they know I care less about keeping my job, but more about standing up for the right thing to do. And of course, as a judge, it's easy to remove somebody from office because these states now have gone to judicial inquiry commissions and, you know, to keep courts quiet if they want to, you know, really say what the law is. I think that the Republican establishment was against me so much because in the last campaign in 2017, I defeated a group of approximately 10 individuals, and one of them that got in the runoff was the establishment choice, and he was backed by some $30 million, and I beat him. And when I did that, they came out with some false information, and last December 18, it was revealed in Washington Times and different papers that it was a misinformation campaign out of Washington, D.C. It was funded by Reid Hoffman, the Microsoft billionaire, and others, George Soros. And it's just, I feel very strongly that the people of our country don't elect their senators. They're told who to elect. They don't know it. They can't. Normal people can't contend with the money that's put against them. I'm fortunate in that I do have widespread name recognition. People know what I stand for. They know what I've done in the past, and they know that I stand for the truth. So I think that's a difference, and I think that Washington doesn't like it, and they've vowed to do everything possible to stop me. And
I can tell you, you know, when I've been in Alabama and Birmingham and Montgomery, you know, I've been down there a number of times in the last few years to meet with you. I was there when you announced your Senate campaign recently a few weeks ago. The people really love you. They know who you are. They gravitate to you. They wave at you when they're coming by. And it's this Washington establishment, which is so evil. I'm in Washington today, with the exception of people at Radio America and some others. It's an evil cloud that hangs over this city. It's almost like the devil has taken it over in many ways. And it's vicious, and it knows no bounds. And I've often said, quoting Groucho Marx of all people, I wouldn't want to be a member of a club that would have me as a member. When I ran for the U.S. Senate, as I said in the lead-in to this show, one of the mottos I said, I don't want to become a member of the Senate club. I want to take a club to the Senate. Because this is the problem that we have here, is that it's all about making money. It's about power. The Democrats and Republicans, they get together for lunch. They get together for dinner, the establishments of those parties, and they divide it up. And it's a very big pie. You can't believe the growth here in Washington. Why do we need all these buildings that are going up all over the place? Why? We have too much government, and government doesn't do anything. Now they want to raise. What are they getting a raise for? They haven't done anything. So that's my feeling here, and that's why you're so important. But I would like to also take a moment here and for you to tell the people what you do at the Foundation for Moral Law. You have really great people. You have your wife, Kayla, is a tremendous person. You have a lawyer named Martin. You have a great private lawyer named Melissa who's helping you in your private cases where you've taken polygraph tests and passed on 2 occasions. I mean, we're fighting against some very evil forces here, and it's not just about you. It's about the entire American people. It's about this country going down the drain. And while you're fighting, there are people like ILHAN OMAR and Rashida Tlaib out there who get a free pass, and all they have to do is use the word racist, and people run away from it because they're scared. You're not scared of anything. So tell us what the Foundation for Moral Law has been doing all these years, because that's a very important organization.
Well, the Foundation for Moral Law stands for religious liberty, and to stand for religious liberty in the country, you've got to understand where religious liberty comes from, and it comes from God. And that's very important. It's not a religious statement. It's a statement made in our organic law, the Declaration of Independence, according to the United States Code, that, and our founding fathers knew well the importance of recognizing God, who gives you the freedom to worship him according to the dictates of your conscience. When government starts pretending to give religious liberty, it's basically taking it away. And that's what's happening. So the Foundation for Moral Law stands up for the right for people to stand up for their faith. And, government shouldn't be dictating that, but in fact it does. And it basically does only against Christians. And that's the problem. We're taking the very foundation of our country and shaking it. And that's what Washington said actually in his farewell address. He said, it was virtue or morality which is the necessary spring of proper government. And he went on down to say, who that is a sincere friend to it can look with indifference on attempts to shake the foundation of the fabric. And basically our fabric has been shaken to the point where if people don't want to bake a cake for 2 homosexual men that want to get married, they could lose their business. They could lose their license. And now before the Supreme Court, we're talking about transgender rights, i.e. rights that originate from what you think. Now, when we've gotten to that point, it's not what God-given rights. It's about man-made-up rights. One of the quotes I often use from Thomas Jefferson was from his notes on Virginia about the extension of slavery in the Northwest Territories, which he objected to. And when it passed over his objection, he said, can the liberties of a nation be thought secure when we've removed their only firm foundation, the conviction in the minds of the people that these liberties are a gift of God, that they're not to be violated with his wrath. Indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, and his justice cannot sleep forever. Well, he basically predicted the Civil War many years later, and today we're suffering the consequences just like they suffered back then. We're suffering corruption in government. We're suffering immorality in society, and we just can't get back to our foundation because we've lost the contact with God. So the Foundation for Moral Law tries to stand up for the truth about the First Amendment and the truth about our religious liberty, and that's what we've been doing for about 14, 15 years now.
Your Honor, you know better than I do. You're a tremendous scholar of the Bible, of the Christian religion, of other religions as well, in comparison to that. In the book of Isaiah, God calls upon the counselors and the judges to restore the tarnished city to the faithful city. Is that what you're trying to do right now?
Well, yes. I mean, I think judges are there to interpret law, not make it. In our system, our constitutional system, judges are not there to make law. We've fallen into the belief that judges do make law and that they're supposed to make law. Well, they're not supposed to make law, and that's the problem. They think they are. And the supreme law of the land is not what judges make it up to be. It's the supreme law of the land is defined in Article 6 of the Constitution. It says, this Constitution and the laws of the United States made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. So it has nothing to do about judges. And one point, Larry, that people need to know about judges, state court judges have as much authority to interpret the federal Constitution as do federal judges. And that's stated right in Article 6. It says, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the Constitution or the laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding, which means that judges of the state have to know the Constitution. They take it when they're sworn into office, and that if they make a ruling, this is something very misunderstood by law, and I wish lawyers that are hearing this would look it up, because it's plainly understood by the Supreme Court of the United States that a federal court can't overturn a state court ruling if it's made during a trial or before the court. They have as much authority to interpret the federal Constitution as the federal court, and when they do, no federal court can overturn it. In fact, in Lockhart versus Fretwell, a 1993 case by Clarence Thomas wrote in that case, he said, in our federal system, a state trial court's interpretation of a federal constitutional issue is just as authoritative as the federal court of appeals in whose circuit the state trial is situated. In other words, if a state trial court, a circuit court, or whatever court is a trial court makes a federal constitutional issue ruling, not even the Court of Appeals and that state court's in can change it. So that's a greatly misunderstood proposition that states still have rights under the 10th Amendment.
Well, Your Honor, you've taught me a lot, and I got to say one quick thing is that when we were challenging whether or not states had to obtain the birth certificate, not just of Obama, but of anybody running for the presidency, you upheld that principle in Alabama under Alabama election law. That was very courageous. Most of your fellow justices on the Supreme Court ran away from that. And that's what I want to point out about Chief Justice Roy Moore. I want you to read about him. I want you to study about him. Listen to this show. Please share it with everybody, not just in Alabama. We're on 2 Alabama stations, but throughout the country, because these are the kinds of people we need in the U.S. Senate. These are the kinds of people we need as judges. And what we have today are politicians in robes. And Chief Justice Roy Moore was never that. He believes in what is right. He believes in God-given principles. He believes in the 10 Commandments, which is the foundation of our legal system. That's not in dispute. And it's a Judeo-Christian system. It's not an Islamic system. It's not Sharia law. It's a Judeo-Christian system. And that's built right into our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and for that matter referred to many times in the Declaration of Independence. So I want to thank you, Chief Justice Roy Moore. I'm very proud to be your friend and to be a lawyer who's helping you among many, and I will do whatever I can to pursue justice along with you in the years ahead. God bless you, and thank you for coming on. Special prosecutor with Larry Klayman. I've said in recent years I've become special defense counsel with Larry Klayman as well. Thank you, Your Honor.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Now, fellow patriots, ladies and gentlemen, people of good faith, people of God. You just heard it. You heard Chief Justice Roy Moore. You heard his principles. You heard that he believes in something. That's what we need today. We don't need people out there who are just getting on TV, saying whatever they need to say to promote themselves. We need somebody who puts their neck on the line. He did that. He paid the price, and he's willing to do it again. And he knows that he will succeed. And I say this in my personal capacity, not as Chairman and General Counsel of Freedom Watch. This is a man that you need to support, someone you need to stand up for, because there are very few people in the country like this. Other clients, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, Cliven Bundy and his family, Dr. Jerome Corsi, Laura Loomer, Demetric Penny, an African-American police officer in Dallas who stood up to Louis Farrakhan, Al Sharpton, Black Lives Matter, New Black Panthers Party. His brothers were killed. He was assaulted. He brought lawsuits. He was called all kinds of names. His life was threatened. He's a hero. Okay, he's a hero. He stood up and went up against the tide with his own people, who were more vicious towards him than even the whites were. I go through that with the Jewish left. I'm a Jewish Christian, but they don't like the fact that I'm Jewish. They don't like the fact that I also believe in Jesus. These are the kinds of things that you need in this country. I've got another client, Kiara Robles. She's a gay lady up in Berkeley, California. She was attacked when she went to listen to Milo Yiannopoulos speak at Berkeley and tased, all kinds of things, pepper sprayed by Antifa. It was actually pepper sprayed. Her eyes were damaged. I brought a lawsuit for her. She stood up for what she believed is right. These are the kinds of people that will restore this country. It's like Gideon's army in the Bible. A few good men and women, we can win because we believe in what we're doing. The colonialists, the founding fathers, they were minority. They brought the rest of the country to heal, to coalesce, to create a new nation. The fact that you have all these people out there today on both sides of the spectrum, the Republican establishment, the Democrat establishment, the hypocrites who claim to be conservative, okay, the leftists, the ultra-leftist communist socialists who claim to be leftists, forget about them. We will win this war peacefully and legally. And, of course, you know Freedom Watch, we have our Justice League, we have our citizens' grand juries who are going to be trying Robert Mueller later this fall. ILHAN OMAR is going to be subject to a citizens' grand jury. We're going to seek her indictment in a month or so down in Florida in a citizens' grand jury. We want her deported. She should be sent back. She's not legitimately an American citizen. Let's say it straight up. Let's not hedge. Even the president backed off of that recently because he was so criticized, called a racist for saying something that everybody else was thinking. Well, we have to say it straight up. It's one thing not to like this country. There's freedom of speech. But it's another thing to do things that harm this country. And if there is a legal way to get rid of people peacefully and legally from the shores of this country, it should be used. And ILHAN OMAR is one person that should be removed because she's committed immigration fraud. She's filed joint tax returns with people who weren't her husband. She has endorsed terrorist-related groups. She speaks to CARE. She wants to go to Israel because she wants to meet with the PLO and Hamas. She wants to establish a relationship that's even greater than what she has today. She's not going there to meet Jewish leaders in the Knesset or with regard to the Prime Minister's office. I doubt that she'll meet with them at all. I mean, no way she'll ever meet with them. She wants to go to the West Bank, and she wants to conspire with these people against Israel. She wants people to boycott Israel, not do business, destroy it financially. She says we should do that, as we should have done with Hitler, as we did do with South Africa and that terrible regime of apartheid, which I opposed as well. So this is why you need to support freedomwatchusa.org, because we're on the front lines. We're not just getting documents like Fitton. He's not a lawyer. That's why he gets documents. We bring hard-hitting cases. We bring citizens' grand juries. We do what needs to be done. And that's why our clients are these freedom fighters. And that's why they need your support. So go to CliveandBundyDefenseFund.org. Contribute to his cause. He still is fighting an appeal. If he loses and it goes back to be tried, he could do life imprisonment. Go to CorseyLegalDefenseFund.com. Support Dr. Coursey. He's involved in the citizens' grand juries. And he also is still at risk. So please, we will rise up. We will win. We have no doubt we'll win because God is on our side. The Judeo-Christian God is on our side. And thank you for listening each week. Share this show. I'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Until then, God bless you.